doing this. I've got a couple of questions for you. So you're both a cover designer and a writer, right? Which one came first?
It depends how you look at it. I published my first book in 2013, but then didn't really do anything with it and publish anything else until 2016.
Right.
But I've always been an artist. After college and university, after a couple of years, ended up finally getting a job doing some illustration. And I moved down to London for that. I did that for a few years before starting to do some photography, and I did wedding photography for a while. While I was doing that, I started experimenting with other kinds of photography, shooting models, that kind of thing. That led to me doing composite photography. That's very much as you see on book covers, taking a photo of someone, then cutting them out, and then creating an environment and a scene around them. So I published my first book in 2013, but it was around 2016 that I really started to discover what self-publishing really was. I knew it was a thing, but I didn't know that you could actually make a living off it and that people were making a living off it until 2015, 2016. I happened across Michael Anderle and what he was doing, joined 20 Books back when it was, I don't know, a few hundred people. It was very small. He reached out to me and asked if I would do his cover because I had a website with composite photography with cosplayers and that kind of thing. I was doing my own book covers at the time, and he saw that and said, do you want to do some of my covers? That was when he had 2-3 books out before he became this kind of empire. And it grew from there. So I started writing my own books seriously and started doing cover work seriously. At the same time, it went hand in hand because by being an author, I got to network with authors, which then led to them seeing my artwork. And that's how it all started.
So you write urban fantasy, sci-fi, post-apoc.
Yeah. So if I look at my shelf, urban fantasy has been my main genre for a while. I've got a 7-book series, urban fantasy, plus a couple of other urban fantasy series like trilogies. I've got a sci-fi series, a post-apocalypse series, cyberpunk, and thrillers is probably my most recent.
And you do the covers for all of them?
Yes, I do all my own.
Any one particular genre that you really like more than the others?
It changes. I'm a bit like a magpie. I'm always after the next shiny thing. Right now, I'm really wanting to get back into my cyberpunk. It was a 4-book series. It did really well for me when it first came out 4 years ago. I think I just want to change, move away from the magic a little bit and just do something different. I'm really looking forward to getting back into that and continuing that series. But I don't have any one thing. I enjoy writing all sorts of different things. I enjoy my urban fantasy. I really enjoy the thrillers as well. That's a different thing. It's a different pen name as well. So it's police procedural crime thrillers. I just happened to watch the first season of True Detective and really enjoyed it and thought, I want to do something like that. And then some other people I know started doing crime thrillers, and it just urged me on to get on with and do that, which I did. And it's doing quite well. There's no magic in them. It's just police procedural.
That's going to be weird, though.
That's why I have my A.L. Frayne pen name for thrillers. So I keep them very separate to my other stuff, even though they actually take place in the same world as my urban fantasy stuff. Some of my urban fantasy characters do pop up in them, but they don't know that these people can use magic and things like that. I'll keep the thrillers separate.
Yeah.
But I like the ability to have people just show up, and so that people that know that I write the other stuff will go, oh, it's so and so. The first season of True Detective has a kind of almost supernatural edge to it, where the killer in that series is influenced by these kind of supernatural ideas that he has. And I liked that idea that these detectives are hunting killers, but some of them are just touched a little bit by the supernatural world. So that's where it started.
I think that's just fascinating. Did you find when you had to go from doing the very speculative fiction covers to the thriller covers? I mean, it's a very different style and genre.
Yes, yeah.
Was that new skills you had to learn, or were you able to just pull that together?
I wouldn't say it's new skills, but it's learning the tropes
Mm.
of the genre. In my cover work, I've done all sorts. I've done romance covers, some westerns, I've done lots of sci-fi and urban fantasy, some post-apocalyptic. They all have their own tropes. They all have their own things that they require because you need your books to fit in with everyone else's books. It can be harder doing my own covers because I'm so close to the work.
Mm.
So it's harder to be objective.
That was going to be my next question, actually, because one of the things I notice all the time is with writers that come into the indie world and don't know the way around yet. They insist on having every single plot element out on the cover.
Yeah.
If there's a golden key in it, it has to be on the cover. At the same time, you are a writer as well, so you're closer to your work. How do you marry those two?
It is hard. Sometimes it varies book on book. Sometimes it's really easy. Sometimes I just get an idea in my head and it just works. And then there are times when I struggle with it and I can't get the concept. There are books where I've gone through 2, 3, 4 covers before I've actually found one that works, which is purely because it's much, much harder to be objective. I found it easier as I've gone on because I think when you start off, especially with your first series, you throw everything in, and because most people start with, I've got this fantastic idea that I want to write, and they just throw it onto the page. It can sometimes be a little bit of a mess because you've got all these ideas and you're shoving it all into one thing. But as you get 2, 3 series down the line, you learn to be a bit more objective and think about your audience and who you're writing for. And you can step back a little bit from it. But it's still my work. Even now, there are times when it's tough and I just have to walk away and do something else and come back to it.
So, how do you do that? Do you create your covers first with whatever photographs you have and then write the characters to look like the people on the cover? Or do you
Tough one. Again, it varies. Depends on the series.
Mm.
My first series, the urban fantasy, the main character, Amanda, I knew what she looked like right from the start. And with some of them, I do photo shoot. I'll book models and a studio, and I'll take pictures of people dressed up in to look like the characters. That's what I did with those books. I actually ended up going through 4 different models before I found the one that I've stuck with. But I think that was because it's my first series and I was very invested in it. That was my baby, kind of, so to speak. But some of the later ones, I'm less bothered. I'm just looking at them now. I've got an Academy series that will be a trilogy. I've got the last one to write. And I just found Daz model I quite just liked. And I thought, that'll do. Some I'm more bothered about and others less. So it varies.
So do you buy your DAS models or you model them yourself?
No, I buy them, but I'll mix and match things from different kits, from different products. I'll buy a figure and then different hair and then different and mix and match. And I've done that many covers over the years now for different authors. I have quite a large library of DAS products to choose from. It's fascinating. For a long time, I was wanting to do 3D. I was doing photography. I was using kind of photos and stock images and that kind of thing for a long time. But I've always known that 3D could really blast the doors off and just give me so many more options for what I do. And when I discovered DAS, that kind of was the gateway into that world because it's a quite easy program to learn compared to some of the bigger kind of 3D programs. It does a lot of things for you. I've started learning Blender more recently. You build stuff within it, whereas DAS, you buy stuff and put things together. And I love DAS. It's great. It's led to me being able to do all sorts of stuff which I could not do before. So
do you do any hand drawing as well in Photoshop?
Yeah, I do. That's where I started back when I left college and uni. My first industry job was as a freelance illustrator and then an in-house illustrator. So I was doing illustrations for role-playing game books, that kind of thing. And then when I got taken in-house by this company, I was doing artwork that's been printed on t-shirts. I was doing that for years. I used to say back in the day that you've probably seen my work and not known it, because it was on t-shirts all over the place. I've walked around a town before and just seen someone wearing my art. It does happen. That's where I started. I still do bits, but it's a tool in the toolbox.
I suppose your design business is driven by customers, whereas your writing is you driving it. How do you stop the design taking over? How do you fit your writing around your day job?
I structure my day quite rigidly. In the mornings, I write. That is my writing time, and pretty much nothing will stop me doing that. So I come to the office and I write for however many hours, have lunch, and then in the afternoon, that's when I do the client work for covers and that kind of thing, which works quite well because a lot of my clients are American. And so
yeah, of course.
In England, they don't wake up until midday anyway. That works quite well for a lot of that. There's weeks when I'm busier and weeks when I'm not. And when I'm not, then I might do some stuff for myself, my own covers or writing in the afternoon.
So are you at the point yet where the writing is going to take over paying the bills?
It has fluctuated over the years, depending on what I've released and how well things have done. We'll see. It's in the next few months, certainly we've invested a lot in advertising. Recently, my wife has taken over the advertising side of things because it's not something I enjoy doing. I'm a creative person and analysing ads is not me. We came to a decision that she'd quite like to do that and help with that side of things. So she's done Mark Dawson's course and a few other things. She's taken over the ads side of things, and that's really helped. The income side of things are looking up at the moment, which is good. On the book side, I'd never give up doing covers because I just enjoy it and it's nice to have the break and get away from the writing. But I do want to get to the point where the writing is probably the main earner at some point. But I'm very happy doing both. I enjoy both because they're both creative outlets, but in different ways.
It wasn't that long ago that being a digital artist, or even an artist at all, wouldn't necessarily guarantee you a full-time salary.
No.
And now
it still doesn't today. It still doesn't. It's just one other market. The indie publishing market has come along and it's given artists another way of supporting themselves and earning money. But there's always been other ways to do that. Back before indie publishing was a thing, I was working as an illustrator and doing work for clients, all sorts of different things. And back then it was role-playing games and stuff like that. But there's always been work in computer games as well and all sorts of different things. I've created art for tattoos. I've created art for muscle building protein products, to pick one out of the air. I've done work for all sorts of things over the years. The indie publishing has come along and it's added another market, which is great. It's given more people the ability to make a living doing something that they enjoy. But there's other places like Patreon, given artists a great outlet, great monthly art, and people subscribe and help people that way. More recently, the whole NFT market is out of nowhere. People are earning good money off that. So there'll always be markets for it. So.
In terms of general advice, if a writer comes to you and wants a cover from you, what kind of information do you need from them?
I basically have a chat with them. It's usually done over email. I'll talk to them about, first off, what ideas they had. Did they have any ideas that, in their own head? Then look at other covers. Show me covers that are similar to the kind of thing that you like, covers that you enjoy and would like to emulate. I also find out about genre they're in. That gives me what tropes that they need to have. So there's a two-way kind of conversation back and forth as we figure out these things.
Yeah.
And like you said earlier about authors wanting to put kind of everything on the cover. It does happen, and so there's often a little bit of coaching and just explaining that a cover doesn't need to be a literal presentation of what's in your book. And in fact, it's often best if it isn't. You need to fit in with your competitors, the other books in the genre. So you need to look like you fit and hit those kind of tropes. The cover obviously needs to look good. It needs to look good small. It needs to tell the reader what's in the book. And it just needs to sell your book. It doesn't need to be a specific scene from your book. To pick one out of the air, academy books, the tropes are the girl in a kind of school uniform stood before a gate with a school in the background. And that's just the tropes of the genre, but there's nothing to say that your academy book is going to have any of that. It might not have a school with a gate or something like that. It might be somewhere completely different, but you still need to fit in. You need to find ways of massaging it so you meet the expectations of the genre while also giving you a cover which you love and enjoy and hopefully sell your book.
I keep seeing in Facebook groups where authors complain and they go, how can he sign my cover? He hasn't read the book yet. What do you say to that?
You don't need to read a book. All I need to know is the genre of your book, a description of the character. If it's going to be like an urban fantasy kind of style book where you have a character on the front, then I need to know what character look like. Do they use magic? Have they got a weapon in their hands? A rough idea of the scene. Is it urban fantasy? So it's probably a city. So what city do you want in the background? And an idea of color scheme. What's the dominant colors that you'd like on your cover? That kind of thing. Some people will have very specific ideas, and some people are more open to just do what you think looks best. But it varies. Like thrillers often don't have any character on the cover. And sometimes if they do, it's just like a silhouette, just against a background. And so for that, it makes it a lot easier. Where is it mainly set? London. Okay, so we'll get a London skyline. A male, female main character. Do you want them on the cover or not?
Obviously, the kind of speculative fiction covers are a lot more involved than, say, thriller covers. How do you stay on top with the trends? Do you have that in your workflow that you review the covers every month, or what do you do?
I wouldn't say I necessarily review them every month, but it depends what job I'm doing. I'm always looking at covers because being an author as well, I'm always aware of what people are doing in certain genres. But if someone came to me with a book in a genre that I've not either done any covers in or I've not worked in for a while, then I would have a look myself and see what the trends are. But I would also ask the author what is in their mind as well, because it is a meeting of the two. Yes, I can put my own ideas across, but ultimately it's the author's book and they need to be happy. I want to know what they're thinking. So I'll ask, go find some covers that you like, that you'd be happy with as a cover of your book, that kind of thing, and show me those kind of things. That will help guide me towards a cover that you like.
So if you had any authors who are just starting out and they literally don't have much of a budget, what would you suggest they do?
That's a hard one, but there are things you can do, but it depends on what your budget is, things like your genre and stuff like that. If you're writing thrillers, it can be quite easy. It can be easier to do it yourself with thrillers because you can just find a stock photo. And if you have any kind of skill with Photoshop, it's not too hard to put some text on. But if you have no skill in that regard and your sci-fi or urban fantasies, they have some very specific needs, then you probably want to be looking at pre-mades. They come in at quite a wide price range. Some of them can be very affordable and still be excellent artwork. So I'll probably go pre-mades is your first port of call, and just find something that's close and go from there. And then hopefully as you put your book out and it starts earning money, then you can always revisit it at a later date if you wanted to change it. All
right. I think that's about all the questions that I had for you.
Okay.
That was really brilliant. Thank you very much.
No problem. Thank you very much.
Great. See you later. Bye.
Bye.